Let me tell you something. There's a power in silence that most people completely ignore. When you stop texting, stop calling, stop chasing, something almost magical happens. Suddenly, you're not just another person in her life. You're the one she can't stop thinking about. But here's the catch. This isn't about playing games or being cruel. This is about strategy, confidence, and awakening her natural desire to pursue what she almost lost. By the end of this speech, you'll know exactly how to make her chase you without begging, without pleading, and without ever seeming desperate. So don't look away. What I'm about to share might be the most important thing you've ever learned about attraction. The first and most crucial step in making her chase you after no contact is understanding the real power behind silence. Most people think that to be noticed, to be valued, they need to constantly be present, always texting, calling, or showing that they care. But the truth is, this constant attention often has the opposite effect. It lowers your value in her eyes because it removes the element of mystery, the sense of challenge, and the tension that naturally fuels desire. When you stop chasing, when you step back and create space, you are doing something counterintuitive but incredibly powerful. You are giving her the chance to feel the weight of your absence, and absence, when used correctly, is magnetic. It's not about being rude or ignoring her just to play a game. It's about showing that your life exists beyond her attention, that your energy is not dependent on anyone else's validation, and that you have your own priorities. This self-possession is rare, and it's exactly what draws someone toward you instead of pushing them away. No contact works because it taps directly into human psychology. People are wired to notice what they can't have easily, to desire what seems fleeting or unavailable. When she is used to your constant presence and suddenly that disappears, her mind starts to fill the void with thoughts of you. She may replay conversations in her head, wonder what you are doing, and feel the emotions she's been suppressing. This is where the real shift happens, from indifference to curiosity, from apathy to longing. The subtle tension that arises during this period is incredibly potent. Every message you don't send, every call you don't make, every like you refrain from giving is slowly building the emotional momentum in her mind. She begins to realize that your presence in her life is not guaranteed, that she might actually miss you more than she anticipated, and that realization is what ultimately sparks desire. Another key aspect of no contact is that it allows you to regain control of your own emotions. Often, when someone is chasing validation from another person, they get trapped in a cycle of anxiety, overthinking, and frustration. No contact breaks that cycle because it forces you to focus inward, to prioritize your own mental and emotional state over the need for immediate reciprocation. In doing so, you naturally elevate your energy, your confidence, and your self-worth, all qualities that are inherently attractive. She can sense this shift, even subconsciously, and it creates a magnetic pull toward you. She begins to recognize the difference between the person who used to chase her and the person who is now calm, composed, and untouchable in their self-respect. This contrast is what makes no contact such a powerful tool. It's not just the absence itself, but the transformation that happens within you during that absence that makes her take notice in ways words never could. Once you've embraced the power of no contact, the next step is learning how to elevate your value in her eyes. This isn't about material wealth, flashy possessions, or trying to impress her with things that don't truly matter. It's about cultivating a presence, a confidence, and an energy that naturally draws people toward you. Elevating your value is about becoming someone she notices, not because you demand attention, but because your life radiates purpose, passion, and authenticity. When she sees that you are fully immersed in your own world, chasing your goals, pursuing your passions, and creating experiences that excite you, she starts to perceive you as someone who exists beyond the ordinary, someone she might have taken for granted before. The difference between being available and being valuable is subtle but profound. It's the energy you carry, the way you hold yourself, the way you speak and move through life that communicates your worth without a single word. This is why so many people fail in relationships. They focus all their energy on being noticed, on pleasing, on bending themselves to fit someone else's expectations, rather than developing a life that is magnetic on its own. Elevating your value flips that dynamic completely. It's about making her curious, making her wonder what your life is like without her constant presence. When you are actively growing, learning, and thriving, she can't help but see you in a new light. Suddenly, you're no longer just someone who exists to fill the gaps in her life. You become someone whose attention and energy are earned, whose presence feels like a privilege rather than a given. She starts to recognize that she may have overlooked a treasure she doesn't fully understand yet, and that recognition is incredibly powerful in making her desire to chase you. Elevating your value also requires self-awareness and self-respect. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to settle for less than the attention, care, and respect you deserve. This can manifest in small daily actions, investing in your physical health, pursuing creative or professional goals, spending time with friends who uplift you, or simply setting boundaries that protect your emotional energy. Every time you choose yourself over unnecessary drama or overextending for someone who doesn't reciprocate, you send a silent but clear message. You are not available for low energy, and you are worthy of being pursued. She notices this, even if she doesn't say it out loud, and it shifts her perception of you from being just another person she knows to someone intriguing, independent, and undeniably attractive. But elevating your value isn't about arrogance or showing off. It's about authenticity. The energy that comes from genuine growth, genuine confidence, and genuine self-respect is magnetic because it's real. It communicates strength without aggression, presence without desperation, and passion without attachment. She begins to realize that you are living a life she may want to be part of, and that desire, curiosity, and admiration start to build naturally in her mind. Once you've embraced no contact and begun elevating your value, the next key to making her chase you lies in understanding the psychology of scarcity. Scarcity is a principle so subtle yet so powerful that most people completely overlook it. It's simple. Humans tend to desire what is rare, limited, or hard to obtain. When something is abundant, it's easy to take it for granted. When something is scarce, it becomes precious, it becomes valuable, and it occupies space in the mind that nothing else can fill. This applies directly to relationships and attraction. When you are constantly available, always responding, always present, you inadvertently become ordinary. She begins to assume that your attention is unlimited, that your energy is there for the taking, and that your presence is something she doesn't need to fight for. But when you pull back, when you limit your availability, when you create space and boundaries, suddenly you become scarce, and scarcity triggers desire, curiosity, and urgency in a way that constant attention never can. Scarcity isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about creating a natural tension that allows her to realize your value without you having to explicitly tell her. When she notices that she can't simply call, text, or show up and have immediate access to you, her mind starts to work differently. She begins to pay attention to the little things she may have overlooked, the conversations that lingered in her memory, the moments when your energy stood out in her life. That tension, The feeling that something she wants might not always be there sparks longing. It triggers reflection, comparison, and even self-questioning. Why am I thinking about him so much? Why does it matter so much that he isn't responding? What am I missing? This is the magic of scarcity. It makes her fill the gap in her own mind before she even tries to reach out. Scarcity works best when it's combined with confidence and self-worth. If you step back but seem anxious, desperate, or uncertain, the effect is lost. The moment you create space but maintain calm, focus on your life, and carry yourself with quiet confidence, that space becomes magnetic. It communicates to her without words that you are not defined by her attention, and yet your presence is undeniably impactful. This is where attraction shifts from being something she passively experiences to something she actively desires. She begins to notice not just your absence, but the way your absence affects her, how her day feels incomplete without your energy, how conversations feel dull without your voice, how your presence is a unique kind of spark she hasn't found elsewhere. The psychology of scarcity also teaches an important lesson about timing. When someone experiences your absence, they naturally start evaluating what you mean to them. They may realize that they were taking you for granted, that they didn't fully appreciate your energy, your humor, your intellect, or your care. The gap you create isn't emptiness. It's a space filled with reflection, longing, and desire. It's in that space that she begins to chase you, not out of obligation, not because of manipulation, but because she recognizes that your presence is rare, valuable, and worth pursuing. After mastering no contact, elevating your value, and understanding the psychology of scarcity, the next step is learning how to use subtle triggers to make her notice you in a way that feels natural, effortless, and irresistible. These triggers are not loud gestures or dramatic confessions. They are small, intentional cues that awaken her attention and stir her emotions without her even realizing it. The key is subtlety, because when something feels natural and unforced, it bypasses resistance and ignites curiosity. It's the quiet glance that lingers just a little too long, the confident smile across a crowded room, the calm and collected tone in a casual message. Each of these small actions sends a signal that your life is interesting, your energy is stable, and your presence is valuable. She begins to subconsciously register these cues, and before she knows it, she is thinking about you more than she intended, replaying interactions and imagining what it would be like if you were more present in her life again. One of the most effective subtle triggers is the art of mystery. Don't reveal everything about yourself all at once. Let your stories, social media posts, or conversations hint at a life full of excitement, passion, and growth without giving her the complete picture. The human mind is naturally curious. When it senses that something important is partially hidden or unavailable, it seeks to fill in the gaps. By sharing glimpses of your achievements, experiences, or moments that make you shine, but leaving just enough unsaid, you compel her to think, wonder, and analyze. That curiosity draws her attention, and the more she fills in those blanks on her own, the more she invests emotionally in you. What you reveal becomes more valuable simply because it is selective, and what you leave unspoken becomes a trigger that keeps her mind occupied by you long after you're gone. Another subtle trigger is emotional contrast. This is the difference between how she felt when you were actively seeking her attention versus how she feels now when you're calm, composed, and living your life without needing validation from her. Emotional contrast creates tension and attraction. She remembers the warmth of your attention, the fun in your conversations, the laughter you shared, and the moments when you made her feel seen and appreciated. But now, paired with your quiet absence and your confident independence, those memories are amplified. She begins to miss the connection she used to take for granted, and that longing motivates her to reach out. Body language and tone, even in minimal interactions, are also powerful triggers. The way you carry yourself, the way your eyes engage, the subtle gestures that exude confidence and calm assurance, all of these communicate your value far more than words ever could. Even when you are not speaking directly to her, your presence in a room, your energy on social media, or your calm reaction to her attempts to reconnect can trigger feelings of curiosity, desire, and attraction. She notices these nuances even if she doesn't consciously understand why, and that is what makes subtle triggers so effective. They bypass overthinking and appeal directly to emotions, creating a pull that she cannot resist. Finally, consistency in subtle triggers is crucial. One isolated action might catch her attention, but repeated patterns of confident, intriguing, and emotionally controlled behaviors build a lasting impression. Over time, these triggers accumulate, crafting a version of you that feels magnetic, desirable, and unforgettable. She begins to recognize not just the absence you created, but the unique energy and presence that she cannot replicate elsewhere. Once you've mastered no contact, elevated your value, and created subtle triggers that make her notice you, the next crucial step is maintaining emotional control. This is the cornerstone of attraction because nothing draws someone more than calm confidence in the face of uncertainty. Emotional control isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending you don't care. It's about managing your energy, your reactions, and your presence so that your life is not dictated by someone else's behavior. When she reaches out, ignores you, or behaves unpredictably, your response or lack thereof can either increase her desire or push her further away. By staying composed, you show that you are grounded, self-reliant, and unshakable. And that kind of stability is incredibly attractive. It communicates that your worth is inherent and not contingent on her attention, which paradoxically makes her want to give that attention freely. Emotional control is most powerful when it is paired with patience. It is natural to feel anxious, curious, or even frustrated when someone we care about is distant. But giving in to these impulses can undo all the progress you've made. Checking your phone constantly, overanalyzing her messages, or responding impulsively sends the message that your happiness depends on her, which undermines the scarcity and elevated value you've been building. Instead, cultivating calm and patience allows her mind to do the work you've already started. She begins to fill the gap with thoughts of you, replay memories, and feel the absence you've intentionally created. When you maintain emotional control, you become a paradox, present in influence but absent in neediness, a magnetic presence she can feel but cannot immediately grasp. That tension creates desire. Another essential part of emotional control is self-validation. When you learn to validate your own worth, to acknowledge your achievements, your growth, and your confidence, you no longer rely on her reactions to feel good about yourself. This creates a form of energy that is magnetic. She can sense the difference between someone who chases external approval and someone who exudes self-respect and stability. Emotional control allows you to be unattached to outcomes while remaining fully invested in your life. This detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means prioritizing your own growth, happiness, and peace, while naturally encouraging her to seek you, because the person she desires is now fully aligned with his own life and energy, rather than reacting out of desperation. Emotional control also transforms every interaction into an opportunity rather than a challenge. When she does contact you or engage in conversation, your measured responses, confident tone, and subtle hints of interest make every word, gesture, and smile more impactful. She notices the calm authority in your energy, the confidence in your pauses, the deliberate nature of your actions, and she subconsciously compares it to her previous experience with you. The contrast between your composed self and her previous perception of you creates intrigue, curiosity, and a subtle sense of urgency. She starts to chase not because you are withholding arbitrarily, but because your energy demonstrates that your presence is rare, your attention is valuable, and your life is fulfilling regardless of her actions. Finally, maintaining emotional control reinforces every strategy you've applied so far. No contact, elevated value, scarcity, and subtle triggers. It is the glue that holds them together. Without emotional control, even the most carefully planned steps can collapse under the weight of impatience, overthinking, or visible desperation. But when you master it, every step you take becomes effortless. Every action communicates confidence, and she begins to chase not only your attention, but your presence, your energy, and ultimately the sense of completeness she associates with you. After mastering no contact, elevating your value, using subtle triggers, and maintaining emotional control, the final piece of the puzzle is understanding the art of timing and reconnection. Timing is not about rushing or forcing interactions. It is about recognizing the precise moment when your presence will have the maximum impact, when the tension you've created, the scarcity you've established, and the curiosity you've ignited all converge into a powerful desire. Reconnecting too soon can ruin the momentum, making all the effort you've put into no contact and self-growth feel wasted because it signals impatience and neediness. On the other hand, waiting too long can cause her to move on or become indifferent. The key is to watch the subtle cues. When she reaches out, when she reacts to your presence, when she shows signs of curiosity or engagement. That is the moment to reappear, not desperate, not overly eager, but calm, confident, and intriguing. Reconnection is an art that relies heavily on balance. It's about showing interest without diminishing the tension you've built, about engaging without overexposing yourself, and about creating moments that remind her of the energy, presence, and value she once experienced with you. Your words, actions, and even the way you approach her must communicate that you are still the person who values himself, who is independent, who lives a fulfilling life, but that you are now selectively allowing her access to your time and attention. This selective availability is subtle but powerful. It instantly raises your worth in her eyes because it demonstrates that your energy is not for everyone and that she must actively choose to invest in you rather than taking you for granted. Every interaction should reinforce the sense that she is engaging with someone rare, someone whose presence adds a unique spark to her life that cannot be replicated or replaced. The moment of reconnection is also when the lessons of subtle triggers and emotional control shine brightest. The way you communicate, the small gestures you use, and the energy you exude become amplified because she has been experiencing your absence and has been reflecting on your value. Even simple acts, a confident smile, a playful remark, or a composed, calm tone in conversation carry a weight that they never did before. This is because timing creates context. She is now primed to notice, to feel, and to respond. Your presence becomes magnetic, and her desire to pursue you is no longer a product of manipulation, but a natural consequence of the absence, curiosity, and tension you have created. Reconnection also allows you to solidify the perception of growth and transformation. When she notices that you have been thriving, evolving, and living a fulfilling life during the time apart, she begins to see you as a person who is not dependent on her validation, whose attention and affection are earned rather than given freely. This shift in perception is critical because it transforms the dynamic between you. She no longer sees you as someone available at all times, but as someone valuable, interesting, and worth pursuing. Your timing, paired with your elevated energy, emotional control, and subtle triggers, positions you as someone she cannot ignore, someone who inspires her curiosity, admiration, and ultimately her desire to chase.